let's jump into the news. So first of all, let's talk about research from the lab. You're talking about
Yep.
salmon. I love salmon, and the industry loves salmon because it's one of the proteins that is a perfect breakfast, lunch, and dinner protein. Like it's
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
such an interesting thing. I mean, you mentioned on I forget which podcast it was. Oh, when you were on Remarkable Retail with Dave Marcotte, you said it's a bit weird. We feed salmon chicken, and so
Yeah.
when I looked through your research, a lot of people are confused about salmon. But what did you learn from the research? Because it was asking consumers about their understanding of salmon, and why don't we
Yeah.
talk about that and what you discovered in the research?
Well, data is showing that wild is still it. I think everyone actually appreciates wild, but the reality when you walk into a grocery store, most of the time, 90% of the time, you're going to be offered farm salmon. That's basically it. So we wanted to dig deeper into how much people know about aquaculture and farm salmon. And by the way, Michael, the reason why we released the study now, it's because
Hmm.
2022 is the International Year of Aquaculture and Artisan Fisheries. So basically a couple of months ahead of that year, we thought of actually starting a conversation about salmon, and our results have been published in different newspapers, which is great. But the point is that people are mystified. I mean, they don't necessarily understand aquaculture all that well, and when you say that it is common practice to feed salmon chicken and canola and other stuff, people are a little bit shocked. I remember when I was moderating a panel in October in Wolfville, and I had a couple of experts in the salmon industry commenting on the future of sustainable production in the sector. One of the CEOs said, "Well, we actually feed salmon chicken," and you could feel in the audience people were surprised and frankly a little bit shocked. And I was shocked
Hmm.
too because I probed further. Well, how did that happen? Well, it's
Hmm.
a cheap protein, it's an available protein, and between you and I, it's not the best parts of the chicken that is fed to salmon. It's the rest, quote
Hmm.
unquote.
Yeah.
So feathers, beaks, legs, all that stuff. So it's you kind of wonder what's going on there, but that is approved by the CFIA. It's of course there are restrictions, clear restrictions, but I must say it really got a lot of conversations going as a result
Hmm.
of that. But I think we need to do a better job explaining how aquaculture works because I received tons of emails from people
Hmm. Hmm.
just telling me a lot of things. Uh, and frankly, I wasn't even sure it was true because it's a bit of an obscure industry. I don't know if you know much about aquaculture, Michael, but next week I'm visiting for the first time in my career. I'm visiting a facility where
Wow.
salmon is actually produced, and I've never been invited before until now. And so I'm visiting a Sustainable Blue. It's close to Wolfville, right here. The CEO's name is Kirk Havencroft, a great guy. So you'll be giving me a tour of the facilities. I'll be asking questions about feed, but he does not feed salmon chicken. And
Hmm.
so I want to know why, and why are we actually doing this in the industry overall?
When I think of salmon, I reflect on a story from about 20 years ago with a major retailer in the US who decided salmon was going to be their focus, and they were going to do everything they could to drive the price of salmon down. And it was going to be like one of these marquee items, as really
Right.
retailers would say. And they wound up contracting with off the coast of Chile, and doing raising the salmon off the coast of Chile. Well, to make a long story short, what wasn't priced into the price the consumers were paying were the economic rents. They basically destroyed the entire coast of Chile by raising so much salmon. Like
That's
the
right.
the environmental impact, and this was the kind of a lesson. And I think this retailer has learned that lesson, and is
And
really
there's
a little more
there's the debate
thoughtful.
of open pens in the ocean,
Do you
pens
want
on
them released
land.
into the wild? I mean, it's
It,
very, yeah, it's very
and there's a
complex, right?
lot
I
of,
mean,
on both sides, on the Atlantic
yeah.
side, on the Pacific side. There's lots of divisive discussions. But I do want to thank my colleague for the study, Stephanie Colombo, who's a research chair in seafood nutrition. She's amazing, and she's very knowledgeable, really, and she knows this stuff. And probably will invite her on our podcast at some point in the new year. But she really just unpacked the whole issue of aquaculture, all the myths
Mm.
related to aquaculture. And certainly, if anyone wants more information about salmon production, I would contact Stephanie Colombo at the Faculty of Agriculture at Dal. She's just amazing, and the work that she's doing with her team is really influencing practices in the industry.
Well, I look forward to learning more about it. And am I correct in saying that there's a an opportunity, not an opportunity, but in Canada, genetically modified salmon is a thing? I
Yeah, it
seem
is
to
a thing.
recall.
Yeah,
I seem to recall CFIA approving it in Canada, though. I
a
think you and
while
I talked
back.
about,
Yeah, it's been more
but
than
it's
two
not in,
years.
but it's not in distribution. Like, what to catch
It
us up
is in
on?
distribution actually, but it's not labeled, so you wouldn't know. Now, grocers have actually banned this product, but it's actually in distribution. Processors are probably using it as we speak. They've been using it for a while. So if you like salmon, salmon pate, or salmon anything, you may have actually eaten genetically modified
Oh,
salmon already without knowing. And that's
oh, interesting.
really, I think it's a bit of a mistake. Well, I think not a bit. I think it is a mistake because it just fosters that whole debate around frankenfood and not
Yeah.
knowing exactly what you're eating. I've always encouraged the biotech technology industry, and in this case, salmon industry, to label as much as possible. Because right now, as far as I'm concerned, I think we're repeating the same mistakes over and over again and not
Yeah.
disclosing as much as we should.
Well, as we know, and I'm just looking at the Sprague soup, right? I mean, many of these products that we've been testing for trying stuff is very
Yep.
clear that it's non-GMO, so it's not a new
Oh, it's all
issue.
over. Yeah. And
Yeah, it's not a
frankly, I
new
think
issue.
it's important for people to demystify this whole issue of
Yeah, we've
genetic
talked about that
engineering
too.
doesn't sound appetizing, but it's not unsafe either. I mean, that's
Right.
really the one thing that you want to
Yeah.
convey to the public. By not labeling, you are somewhat conveying to the public that there are risks, inherent risks, and
Yeah.
you don't want to to install fear, which is really regrettable.